So this is the self-development with tactics book.
Just because I've realized that I haven't even started the recording, fortunately I've actually got it like after 2 minutes or 3 minutes or something. Like I haven't been in the just mid of the episode. It would have been like a little bit of a fucked up thing there. But we're going to talk about blaming somebody else rather than blaming yourself. And yeah, there's going to be more of the intro as always. And the intro is broken. Well, that's good. So in terms of the recording sessions, today isn't like the best day because like a lot of things didn't turn out as I wanted them to turn out, and also the cutting part wasn't that fun. It really pissed me off indeed because I in general don't really like it that much, but I've understood and I've just seen that it makes the episode way better, and therefore I'm just doing it and trying to do it, and I'm trying to do it in a very good way. But yeah, before we actually go through the Psychology Today article that you're gonna then see on the left side of the screen, please check out the links in the description or in the show notes, because there should be everything that you might be searching for, whether it be just other social media links to my social profiles or like other things like the article that we're going to go through and some other things that I might have thought about and put into the description, also in the show notes. So please check them out. It's going to be worth your time. But as you can see on the left side of the screen, this is the article by the psychologytoday.com site, which is called 5 Reasons We Play the Blame Game, not balance game, but blame game, but rarely win. And we rarely win because when we are blaming other people, it's often not turning out in a good way. You know, most often it's gonna just prevent us from progressing, since we actually have to wait for the other person to change just because we have blamed the other person and not us, so that we can actually move on or progress on or whatever the situation is all about. And just because I'm talking about situations, this article gives us 3 different situations. The first one is you left the stove on too long and now your meal is burnt. The second one is on your way out the door, your cat escaped outside and now you will be late. And the third one is while walking down the street, you slipped on some fallen leaves. And of course, every single time this person that happened, or the things that happened to this particular person, so the person just blamed somebody else. This is what I'm willing to see. So when misfortunes like this occur to you, what is your first thought? And the only reason why I'm actually willing to talk about it is just because I see that a lot of people are blaming some other people, which is definitely not something that's really smart or good for your progress, as I've been talking about it before, and also for other things. So in general, at my point of view, or in my point of view, I'm always just mixing that up. In my point of view, it is never ever that good if you're blaming somebody else rather than yourself, if you can blame yourself, or if you should blame yourself, of course. And this is also something that we're going to talk about later in the article. There's also people that are going to blame themselves for everything, which is essentially like also not the best thing to do. So not everyone is is equally likely to engage in the blame game, but there is a little scientific research to advise us on who is most likely to do so. We can, however, define a dimension of blame, so we cannot say whom is the most likely person to do so or who is the most likely person to do so, but we can somehow define dimensions of blame acceptance by adopting a few simple principles. On the extreme blame side of our scale would be people who can always find something else to blame, which is like, okay, whatever happens, you're gonna blame somebody. At the other end of the spectrum are people who blame themselves for everything, even when they have had nothing to do with an unfortunate outcome. And this isn't just false modesty or fishing for reassurance. Some people do believe that they cause every bad thing all or most of the time, which is, as I said before, really not something that good. So related to the study of blame is the social psychology of attributions. Blaming yourself when something goes wrong might relate to a general tendency to make so-called internal attributions for failure in which you see yourself as inept, foolish, or irresponsible. That tendency might motivate you to attribute your success to external factors such as fate, chance, or luck as well. Which is pretty interesting, though. Really interesting to see that there is something you can say about that. And now there are 5 reasons why we're actually playing the blame game. And I really believe that these 5 reasons are actually really good. And I guess they're also pretty valuable. And they are going to be pretty valuable for the majority of the people. So it's the reason why I'm going through them. The first one is blame is an excellent defense machine or mechanism as well. Whether you call it projection, denial, or displacement, blame helps you preserve your sense of self-esteem by avoiding awareness of your own flaws or failings. And that's totally right. The thing is, such a lot of people really do hate failing, even though I honestly have to say that failing as such is truly not something bad, and especially if you're kind of in this whole just self-development sphere or space or whatever, and also self-development and self-help and whatever you might be thinking about. If you are in that space, you probably know that failing is nothing bad, and failing is indeed actually something pretty good, because by failing you first of all recognize what you're not good at, and or you also just see what you should be working on. And if you fail, then there is a chance to progress on that. And if you fail, and it's never ever going to be something really devastating. Of course, there's going to be some situations where it's not going to be that nice, where it's not going to be that easy, where it's not going to be really cool to fail. But it's never ever just, it's really unlikely that it's going to be just really devastating, so that you cannot just progress anymore, so that you can't just do anything about it, so that everything is broken, you basically have to die. It's not going to be the case. If you fail, and then you can just move fucking on. It is what it is. Sometimes it's going to be bad. Sometimes it's going to be okay, my life is fucked. But in the end, it is not. But it indeed is a really great way so blaming others is a really great way to not feel dumb, not feel like a failure. Just feeling your self-esteem not being downgraded by hundreds of %. Because you're blaming somebody else. Because you're not the reason why something happened. When something fails, it is actually, as I'm thinking about it, it would actually, in theory, I'm not going to suggest you to do it. I'm also not going to advise you to do it. But as I'm just thinking about it, blaming somebody else is actually a pretty good way to just, I think, stay confident and also stay on a high self-esteem. I'm not saying that it is good, because it's probably not going to work out in the end. But if you're blaming somebody else all the fucking time, there's no singular reason why your self-esteem, why your confidence, why something else might go down. Because there's no reason, because just it wasn't your fault. It was the other person's fault. It wasn't your mistake. It was the other person's mistake. It is actually, as I'm just thinking about it, unfortunately, a really great way. And it might also help you to understand why people are doing it. Because it is a great way, because it works, because it makes sense, Because it makes sense to blame other people so that you're not going to feel bad about yourself. Which is, of course, something that nobody likes to have, Everybody likes to feel good about themselves. Which is something I guess we all can understand. And I think something that makes total sense to all of us. But yeah, the second one is, blame is a tool we use when we are in attack mode. Failing into the category of a destructive conflict resolution method, blame is a way to try to hurt our partners. And it definitely is the case. Whether it be actually consciously or subconsciously, we're definitely able to hurt somebody else by blaming them. And especially if it is about blaming them for everything and anything and in every single situation, whatever, it is going to be really devastating. It's really going to be not a good situation for them. Especially if they are just having low self-esteem, or if they're having low confidence, then it's definitely going to be not good for them. And especially also when they are pretty good at blaming themselves, and it's it's really not going to be good. It's really not going to be good for such a person. It's really going to make them feel so immensely bad. As I'm just only thinking about it. If you're blaming somebody, and this somebody is not having high self-esteem or is having confidence and whatnot, and you blame them for everything every single day, of course they're not going to feel good about it. Of course, they're actually going to feel really bad, because they think it is actually their fault all the fucking time, no matter what happens. And this is fucked up, because it is not the case, because it essentially is a lie, which is actually also something that we're going to talk about, interestingly. So please, and maybe also think about it. Please not only think about it in as okay, I'm not going to blame others just because I do want to progress myself. I do just want to keep being a good person and whatnot. Just also think about the other person. What happens if you're blaming this person? Is this person going to be happier? Is this person going to be devastated? Is this person going to be just really crying and whatnot? Think about it, because there's a lot of really sensitive people on this planet, which is nothing bad. If you're sensitive, it is nothing bad. It is what it is. There's downsides and also really, really, really great upsides of being sensitive, which might actually be empathetic, I guess. But yeah, The third one, we are not very good at figuring out the causes of other people's behavior or even our own. The attributions we make, whether to luck or ability, can be distorted by our tendency to make illogical judgments. And we are just as bad as making judgments involving the blameworthiness of actions in terms of intent versus outcome. So I'm gonna read it again. The attributions we make, whether to luck or ability, can be distorted by our tendency to make illogical judgments. I don't really know what they are just referring to really be honest, but if it doesn't make any sense that you're judging yourself for something or you're blaming yourself for something that in the end doesn't really have anything to do with you, then it's just not a good thing to do because it is not your fault, because you're not the reason why something happened. And therefore you shouldn't also blame yourself, even though if you are just heavily, I guess, in a self-help space and also in the self-development space, you might be coming across people that suggest other people to just really blame themselves for everything. I do honestly have to say that it also makes sense to some degree, but in the end, I also have to say that it is not going to be something too good. It's not going to be something that's amazing. It's not really going to be something that is going to make you happy. It still depends on which type of person you are. It heavily depends on that. But if you're really, as I said before, a low self-esteem, low confidence person, then it's not going to be something really good, I guess. But if you're like, okay, I'm blaming myself because then I'm always in control, then it totally makes sense for me and also to me. And I think it is then not such a bad thing to do. Even though, I don't know, blaming yourself for the weather being bad, of course, there is a downside of it. If you actually think that it is you, then you're actually going to change your mood, you're going to change your behavior, you're going to change the actions you're taking into good actions. Because you don't want fucking bad weather or something else that is, at least how you think about it, correlated to the bad weather. Because it could either be your actions, it could also be your mood, it could also be the words that you're saying, it could also be just so various different things. But in the end, it could also just be a negative switch. Like you think, okay, the weather is bad, maybe I actually have to be more mean so that the weather gets good again. And on one day, which is then the really most fucked up part about it, I guess, on one day, it's actually going to be the case that you're going to be way more mean and fucking sun comes up. And then you're going to be like, wow, it actually works. And then this person is going to do that fucking shit. Maybe, as I'm just thinking about it could actually be the case. The fourth one, it is easier to blame someone else than to accept responsibility. There's less effort involved in recognizing your contributions to a bad situation than in accepting that fact that you're actually at fault and changing so you don't do it again. It really is the case. It is difficult to change. It is difficult to analyze the situation and also it's difficult to blame yourself. Also because of the whole self-esteem part, I really like this one, but also just because you're then just having the responsibility. And I do believe that there's a lot of people that do not want to have any responsibility. Like there's a lot of responsibilities in life, and of course, it's the more you have, I guess, the worse or the more difficult it's gonna get your life. But I don't know, it totally makes sense, having the responsibility and having the thought of okay, I need to change something. I need to do something about my behavior. I need to do something about it just because it was my fucking mistake. It is not easy. But this is actually what I meant by you're not going to progress. Because if you don't blame yourself, therefore you're not having any responsibility, you also do not just have any fucking feeling of changing yourself because it wasn't your fault, It wasn't you that actually did something about it. On one hand, the last one. People lie. And I actually really like that just because it is so simple and it is the truth. As my colleague Robert Feldman discovered, everybody lies. It's pretty easy just to lie and blame someone else, even though you are at fault. You are at fault. You may figure that no one will know it was really you who spilled coffee all over the break room, so you just blame someone else who isn't there and hope the person never finds out. As I'm just thinking about it, I do believe that the fifth one is somehow correlated to the fourth one, and it's and I think it's also something to do with the first one. So, and I think also with being lazy, I guess, because if you don't want to actually clean up everything and whatnot, the coffee, that was spilled, then of course you're gonna just blame somebody else and it's not your fucking fault and you can just move fucking on and do something else. But it also has something to do with being an asshole in public, even though in the end you're not, I guess, because if you're actually like, okay, it's been my fault, I really believe that a lot of people will like that. I think a lot of people will like the fact that you actually stood up for basically yourself and said that it was your fault, that something happened because of you, that you did something. I really like that thought. I really, really do like that. And it is in the end going to be correlated to responsibility. Because if you're spilling, or it's actually spilling, isn't it? Not quite sure. If you're spilling the coffee, then you're actually having the responsibility to clean that up. And it's then, again, going to be correlated in another axis to just being fucking lazy. Or just not willing to do that and whatnot. So if you're not responsible for something, then you're probably not going to do something about it. Unless you actually feel the urge to do that. But I don't know if this is going to be the case, if you're going to blame somebody else for just dumb shit like that. But yeah, a last little paragraph to maybe sum it up, to maybe just kind of a conclusion maybe. Unlike other games, the more often you play the blame game, the more you lose. Learning to tell when you need to own up to your role in a bad situation will help you grow from your experiences and ultimately help you achieve more fulfilling relationships. I would say so as well, because nobody the fuck would actually be in a relationship with somebody that is blaming somebody else all the fucking time. It really pisses me off, especially like sometimes I'm seeing it, and most often it is actually in a really, really, really dumb way. Really so fucking dumb way. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like then there's gonna be some fucking arguments and some fucking points that do not make any sense. Like, okay, I actually spilled my coffee just because you have done, like yesterday, you've done like cleaned the room and therefore it's just been so clean and it just burned my eyes because of all the light reflections from the table and the other working surfaces, and I was really just blinded by that, and therefore I spilled everything all over the place, not just because I'm a dumb motherfucker and my motoric abilities to hold the fucking coffee and whatnot are just really fucked up and shit. Nah, totally not. Yeah. Let's go through some Reddit questions, I guess. Let's see if there are some good ones. Let's see if there are some ones that actually provide a lot of value to you, maybe even to me, but that's not too important, I didn't even need to ask her number, which is actually something that I've seen today, and I've actually wanted to kind of comment on it, but I've seen like it's already 30 comments, so I don't give a fuck about it. Going from depressed recluse to theater actress at 29. Amazing. I like that story. I'm not gonna probably read that one. Like it's not even okay, yeah, it's something. Well, hi all. I'm a transition state of my life. I have worked in offices in fairly good non-profit and film jobs for about 7 years. I've hated them due to the office part. Despite loving both industries, I felt like I've been an autopilot in my life for the past 7 years. I now feel as though I've finally woken up, which is amazing. I do not even have to read just more of it. It is amazing. An image. I didn't grow up having role models. I grew up having people I didn't want to be like and seeing situations I'd never want to be in. Not all of us are dealt the right cards, but that doesn't mean you can't reshuffle your deck for a better outcome. Totally. I also haven't grown up in a really... I've been growing up in a really good situation and environment with people that cared, with parents that have been pretty good. And of course, as it is in everybody's life, there has been some fucked up parts as well. But I kind of feel like, there are some fucked up parts, but I kind of feel like I shouldn't be complaining about that. I shouldn't maybe play it down. I maybe shouldn't just... I really shouldn't complain about that. There's going to be people that had it way worse. Nah, it's been fine for me. It really has been. Of course, there are some opinions on, especially whatever I'm doing right at this point in time, recording the episode. There is like a lot of opinions in people that think like, well, you should be doing something different. And on some days, I also think about it, but I've started it, I've fucking started it. Therefore, I do just want to see where I am going to be in just a few years, for example. But I guess I do fundamentally have to change something up. I do think, and I've actually seen it today as well, if I haven't done something so just before the episode, which means like, okay, I've prepared some information, I've prepared some parts of a text and whatnot, then it really feels like shit. The episodes really are shit as well. It really does not feel good. I do not know what to talk about and all those things. And it really helps if I prepare myself, if I just read something beforehand, as I've actually done it with this article that we went through today as well, even though I haven't gone through the whole one, just a parts of it. I was just nitpicking everything together that I just as fast as I was possibly able to do so that I can start the episode as fast as I possibly can. But yeah, let's go through the last one. Today is actually not the best recording day. I'm feeling it actually, some sort of, I don't know why. How to discern who I am feeling as an empath. What does discern even mean? Okay, empaths. What technique do you use to discern what you're feeling versus what someone else is feeling? This gets tricky for me when they have feelings towards me that I enjoy, but I don't actually feel that way about them. Sometimes I can't tell whether or not I want to hang out with someone, whether or not I even enjoy someone's company, or whether I have a sexual feelings for them, or whether what I'm feeling is just because of how they feel about me. This happens often and is especially difficult to discern when I'm tired or otherwise not totally mentally sharp. Drugs. Tips, tricks, and techniques, welcome. There's actually just a subreddit which is empath. I get that sometimes too. Most of the time I just roll with it and try to regulate my energy as much as possible to get a read of the room and pinpoint where things are coming from. Everyone sees you through the lens of your own conviction. Their perspective depends on your self-concept, and therefore everything they feel about you can be altered by altering your concept of self. What the fuck? I don't know what he was talking about. Or she. I don't know what an empath is. Maybe I should also... Empath. What's an empath? Chief in science fiction. I think that's the wrong one. I have a slightly funny feeling. What's an empath? Science fiction. A person with a paranormal ability to perceive the mental or emotional state of another individual. Is it actually the case that people like this exist? Well, yeah. Maybe my statement... try it out and see what it is up to and what people are up to. Like, if there's a situation you do not really feel if you want to do it or not, then it's not going to be the last time you were in the exact fucking situation. Like, it's going to happen more often than once, and therefore you just do it once in some way. You're not going to judge the way you did it, and then just the next time you're going to do it in the other way if you just didn't like it. Maybe. But yeah. But in the end, you never ever know what would have happened if you had chosen the other option. Therefore, just choose something. But yeah, I'm gonna end the episode there. Today, as I said, is really not such a good recording today, I feel like. But yeah, I wish you the best health, happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself and you're going to be remembered, which basically means your legacy, which basically means that you're just going to be a nice person. And then you're also going to be remembered as a nice person. 3 other questions that I'm having for you are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? And these 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea, since a lot of companies started out with solving something that really pissed them off in the first place. But yeah, I'm going to see you the next time, and I'll wish you the best. And I'll also hope that you're going to subscribe to the podcast and maybe even subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. It would mean the world to me, just because there's so much work that I'm putting into it. But actually, not a lot of people care about that, and this is something that I understand, because I think wouldn't care either if it is something that I really am not interested in, if it is something that I really am not looking forward to consuming, I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna see you the next time.